Today we're back with some combat mission Shock Force 2. This is a military grade simulation, and I say military grade not because it is somehow better than other types of games, but because it is truly a simulation. It's not a game, and it's very difficult to grasp the depth unless you've just invested a bunch of time into this experience. I guess one of the easiest ways to explain it is understand that some of the people who are designing this game have backgrounds modeling and designing simulations for the US military, and this simulation is also used by militaries around the world, including the British military, to train officers in maneuver doctrine and warfare. And what makes it so detailed is the calculations that are being done under the hood all the time. So the armor values of the vehicles are accurately reflected. The type of munitions that they're employing and those munitions' effectiveness against their target type are reflected accurately. The task organization of the forces is done accurately. So you've got the right number of vehicles by type in a platoon, the right number of soldiers per squad within a rifle squad, the right type and composition of weapons in a machine gun team. And each of those systems functions as you would expect it to if you have a background in military service or maneuver doctrine. And the game rewards maneuver, it rewards doctrine and successful planning and taking prudent risk in a pretty profound way. And it encourages you to use the course of action development process, intelligence preparation of the battlefield, and the troop leading procedures to design plans that are going to make you successful. In that way, it lends itself very nicely to content for me because my background is very much in a lot of those things, and so I feel very comfortable talking about it. What I do have to concede, though, is that the game or the sim doesn't look the best because the focus isn't on looks. It's on producing an experience that's authentic and being a training platform so that you can build your proficiency in this sort of endeavor. And it's also a little bit clunky to control. I'm not very well versed in the game. I'm not very efficient with the way that I manipulate the controls or the buttons. I frankly don't even know all of the features that the game has to offer. I've played a couple of rounds all the way through, but I think I'm at a point where I can at least speak intelligently about what I'm doing and hopefully lay out my decisions in a way that you find entertaining. Think door kickers on a macro scale. We've left the era of CQB. We're moving into open field battle, combined arms battle, maneuver warfare, multi-domain operations, all of that stuff. So today our mission is to take this company plus size element from Task Force Thunder, perform a combined arms breach, and assault this desert fort over here that's currently occupied by a battalion-size element of infantry reserves from the Syrian army. Yes, this flashpoint occurs between the United States and Syria in 2016. And luckily today we have tactical overmatch in that we've arrived with a pretty robust combined arms team consisting of M1 Abrams main battle tanks up front, as well as a company of strikers. So I think I have 2 striker platoons. I have a tank platoon. I've got an MGS, or mobile gun system, section right here, and then I've got some engineers as well. And I've got a couple other rifle platoons also in strikers that should show up here in just a second. The first thing we do before we begin making a plan is we take a look at the terrain and how we think the enemy is arrayed on that terrain. So let's take a look at the terrain now. I see flat open desert. I see one massive obstacle in the form of this berm right here. I see a high-speed avenue of approach in the form of route lightning. I see a tactical obstacle that's been emplaced by the enemy at the suspected breach point. So we've got wire, I think. Yeah, certainly mines and other obstacles in this breach point. Big, wide open desert. The enemy's also fortified himself, so he looks like we've got some whole defilade fighting positions. The intel packet said that we had T-55 tanks that were also static and in the defense. And while there isn't a maneuver armor section out here, there is an infantry reserve element that can occupy those T-55s and fire anti-tank systems at us. Beyond those T-55s, they didn't have a heavy weapon capability. But those T-55s are dangerous, even though we do have tactical overmatch with our Abrams. But it's the most dangerous thing on the battlefield. So several other whole defilade fighting positions. High-speed avenue of approach runs all the way to the rear. Then a big fortified position with 2, obvious breach points. One here, Oh, I take that back. A single breach point. Nope, there we go. There is another one. And then within this compound, we have a massive headquarters of the fort. We've got large structures at each corner, and it looks like barracks or something back there. So this is a military installation occupied by the Syrian military. And that's, one of the objectives that we have to take. The fort headquarters, the fort barracks. So if the enemy is trying to block my breach of this mind wire obstacle and my advance along this high-speed avenue of approach, how would he go about doing that? My suspicion is that he's certainly occupied whole defilade fighting positions here and here, and has a large battle position on this side of the road, a second large battle position on this side of the road, and he's going to be prepared to engage my location over here. I also suspect that the infantry is going to be in these buildings, in these windows, and prepared to use small arms if I were to make my way across the open desert. I think another battle position is going to be right over here. It looks like we have more whole defilade fighting positions. And then I suspect that the enemy also likely has a QRF element capable of reinforcing the battalion that is over here. So with that in mind, if I think the enemy is kind of arrayed in that way, how would I go about performing a combined arms breach? I do think it's interesting that the first mission of this game is a combined arms breach, which is perhaps doctrinally one of the most challenging tasks that a maneuver force could be asked to accomplish. And that's because there's a lot going on. So when we perform a combined arms breach, you task organize into a support element, a breach element, and assault element. That support element's responsible for establishing a support by fire and overwhelming the enemy with direct and indirect fires, so that the breach element can move forward and then open a breach lane through that mind wire obstacle, then proof that lane. Once that breach lane is then open, the assault element can then flow through. So pretty simple concept, but very difficult given the anatomy of this area and virtually any other area where you'd be asked to perform a combined arms breach. Anytime we breach anything, we got to remember the acronym SOSRA, which stands for Suppress, Obscure, Secure, Reduce, and Assault. So not only are we task organizing into support, breach, and assault, we're also going to perform those steps in sequence to ensure that we're successful when we perform our breach. So we're going to suppress the enemy with direct and indirect fires. We're going to obscure the breach point by putting smoke near the enemy, and obscuring ourselves by using micro-terrain to conceal our efforts at the breach point. Then we are going to secure the breach point by moving to it, securing the near side. Then we're going to reduce the obstacle itself by sending our engineers in there to blast through it. And then we're going to assault through the threshold and get to the other side. So it's interesting, a lot of these same kind of principles apply regardless of the fight. So they apply, in a room in Battle Drill 6, like we talk about in Door Kicker so frequently, but they also apply out here in the big fight. So I think the way I'm going to break down this whole thing, because it's going to take quite a while, is I'm going to draw out my plan for the turn, then I'm going to explain what my plan is, and then I'm going to hit play. We'll watch it unfold, and we'll kind of take it that direction. So this video isn't 2 hours long. Okay, so my first plan is made. Pretty simple. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this striker right here. This is a fire support vehicle, so it's got forward observers and people that are really good at calling for fire, calling for artillery, calling for airstrikes and stuff like that in it. So I'm immediately going to put that fire support vehicle up on this berm so that those guys can begin calling for fire. As soon as they're up there, I'm going to start dropping steel on the enemy immediately. My priority is very likely going to be my target, this objective area right over here, the actual fort proper, unless I see any other high payoff targets elsewhere. And I'm going to keep that kind of disruption occurring for the duration of this, just depending on how many rounds I have allocated to me in the way of ammunition. We talked earlier about being task organized into support, breach, and assault. My support element's definitely going to be these tanks. I'm putting a tank here, a tank here, a tank here, and a tank here. They're going to immediately start hunting for enemy tanks and trying to knock them out. They're going to be the only guys exposed, at least initially, to the enemy, I hope. My breach element is going to be these engineers with this infantry squad over here and these 3 strikers. They're going to move and kind of stage right here. After we get the support set, the breach guys will be the next in the shoot. And they'll end up having to go blasting through the choke point up there. And then finally, I have 1 platoon of infantry that's going to be my assault element, and I've pre-postured them right here. Let's see how it all goes down. Alright, so in our very first turn, we get our fire support vehicle into position, and we start observing the enemy. What do we have so far? Okay, so that's the enemy that we suspect being at those locations so far. We also got this tank up. He engaged this T-55 over here, scored 1 penetration. Took a shot over there. I didn't see the result of that engagement. How are we looking elsewhere? We have 1 tank making it across that MSR. So a lot of these guys are going to continue to move into position. So I'm going to let the tanks continue to work. What I am going to do, since I've got this fire support vehicle in place, I'm going to begin suppressing the enemy over here. So what's that look like? First thing I'm going to do, so we have an RQ-7B Shadow available to us. I'm going to use this Shadow to answer some of my priority intelligence requirements, my PIRs. The biggest one here is the location of enemy armor, because it's the most dangerous high payoff target on the battlefield. I want to locate it so I can destroy it, and I suspect that armor is going to be located over here and over here. What I'm going to do with this RQ is I'm going to give it an orbit right in here so it can try to detect some of this armor, but I still get some sympathetic collection over here on the edge of those buildings. So let's go ahead and give this guy an area target, his center point right in here. Tell me what this question mark is, and then I kind of want the orbit right like that. That'll cover all of these kind of fighting positions with the exception of some of these over here, but for the most part that's a pretty good orbit. So I'm going to call that guy in. He's going to observe immediately, which means he'll be on station in 2 minutes. That's plenty good. And while we're waiting on that RQ to come over here, we're also going to call for fire. I've got 4 tubes of 120 millimeter mortars. I've got 50 HE, 6 white phos right there, and also 50 HE and 6 white phos there. I'm going to put 2 tubes into action right now. I'm going to give them a linear target right along this building. I'm going to ask for both tubes. I'm going to want it nice and light, at least initially, because all we're doing is disrupting the enemy while we move, and we'll pick up that rate of fire as we move closer towards the enemy. We're going to have that duration maximum. This is just general, and we want it right away. It'll be on station in 4 minutes. Here we go. We are successfully engaging those T-55s over there. And it looks like we've scored a catastrophic kill. Enemy infantry is squirting out of those T-55s and running. They are definitely pinned and taking casualties. Those are coaxial machine guns coming off the tanks and having really good effect. They're even achieving some grazing fire because they're lower to the ground, so that beaten zone is nice and long. So we're getting just absolutely vicious effects there. Alright, with the situation as it is, I've actually given no new orders. I have kind of surveyed the battlefield. There does seem to be a battle position over here like I expected. There does seem to be a battle position here like we anticipated. The enemy's headquarters looks like it's right there, and it's taken a beating already. All of our tanks are doing some damage. I'm going to let them continue to work. We're getting really good suppression. I'd like to wait for my indirect to start landing here, and I'd like to continue to attrit the enemy with this support by fire position before I commit through this breach point and actually get engineers out to breach through here, right? Because that's going to be enormously dangerous, because we're actually going to get soldiers out of the back of a striker and ask them to clear this thing out. Oddly, you know, in a combined arms breach like this, where you have tanks and you've got strikers and you've got all this mechanized and wheeled armor, I would expect that we would have an assault breacher vehicle, an ABV, which is a heavy breaching vehicle on a Abrams chassis, and it's got a nice dozer on the front that can plow through a lot of AT mines and stuff. It's also got a mine clearing line charge, a Miklik on it, and they'd be able to immediately fire that line charge out through this lane and open it up for us. And that would typically be task organized into a formation like this for this sort of task. We don't have that. We have sappers in the back of a freaking infantry carrier vehicle, so we're gonna have to take that, you know, for what it's worth. But let's take a peek at this next minute of gameplay here, and then we should be getting our mortars and our shadow on station here momentarily. Alright, this turn I actually still have not given any additional instructions. What I'm going to do is let everyone who I have task organized get into position. So the last unit to get into position is going to be my breaching element. They're going to come right up into here. I'm going to let the tanks keep destroying the enemy in detail as they have been doing so effectively so far. Should have additional elements arriving to reinforce us from the rear here momentarily. And then I'm going to begin really increasing the rate of fire over here so I can begin kind of actually working the breach. So I'm going to increase the amount of indirect fire that I'm putting on the actual headquarters proper. But here we go.
Fire mission out.
That's that fire mission I requested earlier. That's going to be coming in over on the actual enemy objective there, the headquarters. And if you wonder why it took so long for them to work that fire mission, it's because I didn't rush them. I wanted to let those forward observers take their time to make sure it was accurate. With that round in the air, it's a mortar. It's probably going to take 40 seconds or so to land. See how he does.
Flash, over. Flash, out.
Not too shabby. Wonder if he'll adjust it or he'll fire for effect right where it is. Alright, I'm going to take my snipers out and put them right there. And I'm going to use the snipers who have a secondary task of being able to call for fire. I'm going to put them right there and let them call for fire.
Flash out. Fire for effect, over.
Okay, in this next turn, we are continuing to set conditions for our breach. This time we're doing that by first using our snipers to call for fire again along the headquarters over here, but we're increasing the rate of those 120 rounds. That's going to free up my FO over here as soon as he's done observing to begin transitioning to a smoke fire mission. I've also assigned specific targets to these tanks. So this tank is going to service this building here. This tank is going to put rounds in the headquarters. This tank is going to put rounds in the headquarters. After this first minute of putting some HE rounds into those structures, we'll let them go back and choose targets of opportunity. I've let this guy free just in case we get an odd counterattack here, and I've left this guy free so he can continue to service over here. We've also taken our engineers. I've dismounted them. I'm going to move them up here. They're going to stage there until it's time for them to actually perform their breach. All is going well. We've achieved good suppression, guys. There's no reason to rush a combined arms breach. We're not taking effective fire from the enemy. So I'm going to continue to service the rest of this building with indirect. My RQ's got good eyes over here. Still don't have a lot of enemy movement. And I feel pretty satisfied that we have done sufficient damage here that the enemy's not going to be able to influence us. I would creep this tank forward, but I don't want to get him anywhere near any of these obstacles. So I'm avoiding that for that reason. I've told all of my tanks to cease fire because we fired so much high explosive anti-tank munitions. We'll save the rest of that ammo, finish up these fire missions, set conditions for the breach, continue to develop this situation. We're almost ready to begin our assault.
Flash, over. Flash out.
Okay, so we got more reinforcements this turn. The reinforcements were actually a 155 battery, so we have more artillery. So my fire support plan continues to develop. My fire support vehicle is still in a good position right now. We've got a linear target on the headquarters. We also have a linear target on the barracks. This headquarters target is about to expire, and the observer that is observing that headquarters target is going to put smoke over here to set conditions for my breach of the mind wire obstacle. My snipers right here, they're also continuing to service the headquarters with 120s. So that's kind of where we are right now. We're almost there. It's about to start getting gnarly. And a bonus here, guys, because remember, all I got to do is capture both of these headquarters buildings and then defeat the enemy in detail. The enemy's been attrited pretty severely. I imagine we're going to have some infantry still moving around. But I've got enough fires now to protect my flank as I move, and I've also got a breach point over here, so I'm able to kind of get my strikers up and then pour infantry into these vehicles, or into those buildings. So that's good stuff there. Okay, so I've got 3 fire support elements right now. I've got 2 sections of 120s. My fire support vehicle here, my FSO and the FSNCO, are observing the 120s that are on the headquarters right now, and they're also calling for fire with 155s down on the barracks. Then these snipers over here are calling for fire also on the headquarters with that other section of 120s. One of the sections of 120s is about to become available once more, and once it is, I'm able to retask them for smoke. And then of note, we just got another section of strikers, or another platoon of strikers. I've moved them up. They're going to be my Assault 2 element. So I've got Assault 1. I've got a MGS section that's going to be able to help punch holes in walls or target buildings. And then I've got an Assault 2 section. And then my sappers are still over here just waiting on the word. They just need that smoke before we go. We've suppressed. We need to obscure before we secure and assault. There we go. One section of 120s is free. That means we can start working smoke. Now we need to obscure the objective so we can secure the near and far breach points, punch a hole in it, and then get across. So to obscure the objective with my very limited, I've only got 6 rounds here of white phosphorus. I'm going to put that Willie Pete. And this is tough too because we are shooting Willie Pete, so we don't want to walk through it. We could drive through it afterwards, but we definitely don't want to walk through it. I'm going to put it, I think, like right like this. 178 meter line. It's definitely danger close. We use a term called REDS, risk estimated distance. We're shooting Willie Pete within, 150 meters or so of troops because I've got the snipers right here. Everyone else is in armor, so that is a risky shot, but it's risk I'm willing to accept because it's going to protect my engineers.
Flash, over. Flash out. Shot, over. Shot, out. End of mission, out.
Alright, our sappers have done their jobs. I'm moving 2 to cover, moving 1 up just to confirm, in fact, that we have successfully got through all of these mines. We've still got smoke up, kind of obscuring them. We still have good security. I'm also repositioning 1 Abrams tank right over here. I'm going to end up leading with Abrams through the breach, securing a foothold on the far side, and then launching my assault force through to secure the headquarters and the barracks. 2 fire missions I have working right now. I've got 1 right here. Ooh, nice hit on that tank. I can't believe they still got tanks out here. They do. And there's more showing up. That has to be a counterattack, right? Holy crap. Great work, team. We've got another infantry platoon with 2 machine gun sections in reserve, so that gives me 3 infantry platoons now. So the full company is here, plus a section of tanks. Okay, we're about ready. Glad we had the support by fire, and that Abrams can reach out and touch these guys at range.
Shot, over. Flash, over. Shot, out. Flash, out.
Alright, we're sending our first 2 tanks through the breach. They'll be able to hold pretty effectively on the far side. I'm not too worried about them being exposed. They're out of range of most of the shoulder fires that could be in those structures, and those structures have been pretty thoroughly serviced, and they've still got good support by fire up on the hill. Indirect coming in over here. These tanks are proof in this lane for me. Once that lane is proofed, I feel comfortable starting to send my assault elements through and the rest of the tanks. For fire support right now, we've got 120s available, howitzers available. I would like to get these howitzers in the fight. Got 120 rounds there. They have an X-Cow round. I did not realize an X-Cow round was available.
Requesting fire mission. Over.
Did the engineers effectively get this
Flash
lane
over.
cleared?
Fire for effect. Flash. Flash, right out. Fire for
It appears they did. Alright boys, open breach, let's go to work. Alright, we set conditions with fires, we obscured the breach, we opened the breach, we've proofed it. Now we're going to begin flowing forces through it. We've got 2 tanks through already. I'm going to start breaking down the rest of these guys. I am going to leave my fire support vehicle in position there. I'm going to leave these snipers in position to continue working fires for me for the duration of this thing. I'm going to move, I think I'll move this guy off first. Okay, I'm just working on getting those tanks through. We're going to continue calling for fire for the duration. Once these tanks are through, then I will be confident that I have good far side security.
Flash. Flash. Out. Fire for effect. Over.
Alright, so what I've done here is I've pushed tanks up on the periphery to defeat armor counterattacks from the sides right there and right here. So I'm going to have 2 Abrams and then 2 Abrams. Then I'm bringing my MGS. The Striker MGS is the mobile gun system. Basically takes a Striker chassis, puts a 105mm smoothbore cannon on it. It sucks against armor, but in this situation, I think my armor threat's on the periphery, so I've got tanks to counter that, and I'm putting the MGS up front. It can punch holes in these walls. It can also suppress these buildings when I start to bring my infantry up. Once that's all set, I'll be able to start flowing my assault elements through. You'll also notice here that I'm using the same route through that proofed lane to make sure I don't hit any of these mines. It's about to start getting froggy. Here we go. One tank looks like it's stuck. Here comes my MGS. Alright, while I'm holding isolation with my armor, I am going to put a linear target over on the fort barracks so I can deal with the headquarters over here first. We're definitely in a lot of contact. I'm going to continue to pump these structures full of lead with my coax machine guns. I'm going to get the MGS up here and start putting 105 HE into these things as well. Not quite ready to bring my infantry up just because the amount of fire that we're experiencing so far. But I do want to let this situation develop a little bit further, and I also need to deconflict these guys a little bit. I expected the threat to be more out here for my armor. Instead, they are taking a lot of fire from the this building. So I'm going to go ahead and move these guys up like this so they can get out of the way. Our MGSs are in position. They're doing exactly what we needed them to do. Almost time to start bringing our assault elements up. Each of these vehicles still intact. Fantastic. So our combined arms breach was successful. Now we're exploiting that breach by falling onto these major assault objectives. We've set conditions to make entry into that first structure. What I'm going to do now is take this infantry platoon, vehicle by vehicle, and get them in here. Remember, we're using the same lane. Trying to put the vehicles in a position where they will be able to dismount infantry without being at risk themselves. We've got plenty of support in the form of fire support as well as isolation and containment set by our mobile gun systems as well as these Abrams. So I'm hopeful that we've set conditions appropriately to get this done and get it done right. Oh shit. Guys, at some point, my freaking fire support vehicle got drilled by a tank or something. I've taken casualties over here and I had no idea, and I've got guys pinned down. Holy crap. Alright, so my most casualty producing weapon, my fires, are out of the fight. So our only fire mission is over there right now because they've lost contact with our other spotters. Alright, strikers are on the way. They'll get in position this turn. They'll download troops next turn.
End of mission. Out.
Get out of the breach, buddy. Get out of the breach, dude. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh my god. Well, of course you'd stop in the breach. Holy shit. Guys. Oh my goodness. How bad is it? Oh, this is going poorly now. So we're trying to get a foothold with our infantry up here. We're maintaining our support by fire, and I'm pressing a second platoon up to hold an assault position here. And as soon as we get the headquarters clear and secure, that'll be the trigger to establish support by fire on the barracks, ceasefire on the fire mission, and then flow into it with the rest of my force. The biggest challenge right now is getting a foothold in this building. We've been just crushing it with tank rounds and everything else, but they're still fighting back pretty hard. We're suppressing it pretty effectively. Nice. Go get him, boys. Oh my god, did we mass cow right in the threshold over here? I sent that platoon in, or that squad in. Look at this. They just piled up in the door. I mean, they traded, but good lord. Okay, we've got one platoon that got a foothold in this structure. There's still a shit ton of enemy. I'm going to dismount a second here, and then just pick up the amount of support that I'm giving to these guys over here. I mean, we're suppressing the shit out of these dudes. We really are.
Out. Flash. Over. Flash out. Flash. Over. Flash out.
Alright, we're getting our infantry stacked over here on the wall. We're going to try to get in one of these buildings and get a support by fire established.
Flash. Out.
Nice. This support by fire is actually doing some pretty good work for us. It is starting to be the subject now of some fire. Good lord, they freaking hit it with a grenade and knocked the entire squad out. I'm moving 2 rifle squads down here to see if I can take this building, start getting a support by fire over there. I'm working a fire mission right here. I'm pushing medium machine guns into here to backfill the casualties that I just took, and then I'm taking these tanks, pushing them into this gap to start getting effects here. One concern is that ATGM that I see right there. This is still enemy occupied. I am still suppressing it with 2 Abrams, and then my MGSs are still doing work. I have 1 infantry platoon in reserve that I have not yet committed, but I have a feeling we're going to need them in the near term. this platoon up into position. We have another platoon here getting ready to take these 2 buildings. Fire mission's about to land right here. 2 tanks in the fight. This guy took some damage to the wheels, but he's still kind of hanging in there. A lot of the damage seems to be coming from this quadrant. We've got machine guns in here with good fields of fire this direction. We have a foothold in this building. Things are okay right now, I suppose. Alright, machine guns from this reinforced platoon are going to the roof. We're assaulting first, second, third levels in sequence. That'll set conditions for us to clear out the rest of this building. We've still got a decent little foothold over here. I don't want to come flying around this corner quite yet because we do seem to kind of be in a weird spot. This tank inching up just a little bit. These guys are going to begin suppressing this spot right here, and after we get good suppression on this building, we're actually going to move to try and take this guy again. I'd say Fort Barracks has been serviced sufficiently. I'm going to put Excalibur rounds from the 155 right here on this bunker. Over here, we're going to go rooftop with machine gun team, maintain suppression on this structure. Over here, we've pretty much dominated this entire space. I'm feeling pretty good about what's going on in the headquarters. This building's still kind of an issue. I'm going to have to commit more vehicles here momentarily. I've got lots of striker guns I could get into the fight. It's just tough to work on with vehicles in this sort of environment. Alright, now that we've got a foothold here, we're going to clear this building. I've got a squad on each floor just working down the long axes. I've got an MGS punching a hole here so I can get a tank through. And I think that's about it. Lots of solid maneuver going on. Our boys need to get through the rest of this building. They're already starting to take casualties. I'm going to target this portion of the building briefly for 15 seconds. It'll shut off right as the boys arrive to the destination. Over here, we're actually doing pretty good. Got a good rooftop foothold. So this target briefly, it's basically emulating like a prepare to shift fire call where you'd increase the rate of fire and do a battle handover to an assault element. So we're just shifting fire. That's all it is. We're rapidly suppressing the enemy by raising our rate of fire and violence of action, and then we're shifting off that target so that the assault element can then get through effectively. So let's see how that works for us. We got a foothold. All right, we secured a total victory, finally. Holy crap. That was an absolute nut roll. We secured the ground. We secured the targets. We missed mission parameters, got 55 points. We have 130 men that are still doing okay. We had 49 killed in action and 26 wounded. That's a high price for what we did, frankly. No missing, no tanks lost. We lost 3 armored vehicles. Those were all strikers that I just committed to early. The Syrians suffered 92, they had 92 survivors. We killed 220, wounded 129, 3 missing. We killed 18 tanks. So all in all, like a pretty successful mission, but those 49 killed, that's substantial. That's a pretty unacceptable number in my estimate, given the amount of firepower we had. And I think we learned a lesson there too. The lesson being we need to really maximize the use of our heavy weapons and our fires. And we also learned about the way that this game simulates building assaults, urban environments, CQB, things like that. But yeah, kind of a different look. We'll see how I can chop this up in editing and hopefully make it valuable for you guys. If you enjoyed this, you like tactical games, you like military simulation, you like combat simulation, if you're a service member, a veteran, an enthusiast, if you're a gun guy, this is your home. Really glad to have you guys here. If you like this, let me know in the comments below. If you want to see other stuff similar to it, also let me know about that. Don't forget, guys, if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can become a member of it for as little as 99 cents a month. It gives you access to our private Discord server. And then at the highest level of our membership, you also get a discount on merchandise. So if you go down to the merch shelf below, you'll see all the Teespring offerings we have. Got some patches and stuff like that, some posters, t-shirts, things that are pretty cool. And don't forget to check out the website. If you want to find my secret YouTube channel, go to the range and shoot some guns and talk about the profession of arms in a more different or in a more powerful way. I'm Controlled Pairs. I play the most immersive tactical shooters and combat sims in the world. This is Combat Mission Shock Force 2. I'll see you guys in the next one.